Now, to the Australia Day conversation, by this time next week, we'll be looking forward to it even more so because it will be upon our doorstep. Friday next week, the national public holiday, to, yes, celebrate Australia. Not white pride, not victory over Indigenous people, but no, a celebration of the greatest multicultural country in the world. The one where, yes, someone came from somewhere else, but all of us get to live in not relative, absolute peace. And thousands of people put up their hand and, of course, they join the country, and it's why I love Australia Day in particular. But as you know, Woolworths making its decision, and again, I stand by this, that I am not holding water for supermarkets, but their stupid decision to get rid of the Australia Day paraphernalia, and yes, we all know it's all garbage that's made in China, but they decided to put out a press release to say, how good are we? How amazing are we? We did this. Well, it set a fire off a couple of days ago, and it continues to today. Now, whether people are changing their shopping habits or not, probably not, because all of us are creatures of habit. But I wanted to show you this, where, as you know, the collective press gallery opinion is that anyone who has any problem whatsoever with what Woolworths not necessarily did, but how it trumpeted what it did, well, apparently some sort of a knuckle dragger who was, of course, involved in a culture war. And it's another way of starting off the year by bashing Peter Dutton, as opposed to starting off the year by talking about the economy that the Prime Minister is presiding over, which of course means much of the media desperate to rehabilitate the Prime Minister with the pack of whackers. Well, they were given a moment here to be able to have a go at Peter Dutton. And then there was polling that came out today that seemed to reinforce the idea that no one cares and it's all just a weird thing Peter Dutton was talking about. The headline saying, just 1 in 5 Aussies back Peter Dutton's call to boycott Woolies. Now, I don't have the original data from the poll. I only have what was written in the articles. But I want to show you how there was a little fiddle here in the poll. Now, if you have a look at this, you can see that it's split into 3 parts. The red bit is I support the decision of Woolworths and Big W management, so that's about 14%. There's also some polling around today that says about, 30% of people are those that are ones who say change the date. About 20% of people, a little bit higher for people who voted no in the referendum. But I support Mr Dutton's call and will be boycotting Woolworths. And then there is the vast majority, which is 66% who say my main concern with supermarkets is the excessive price rises rather than this issue. Well, hang on here. Now, I'm fine to see a poll that turns around and says the majority of Australians disagree with those of us who have had a problem with the way that Woolworths made this decision. OK, that's fine. That's democracy. But a poll that doesn't really ask the yes-no question of do you support Woolworths' decision no longer to stock Australia Day merchandise, yes or no? And then another question, because you can ask multiple questions when you're a poll. It basically costs exactly the same money, no matter how many questions that you ask. Do you agree with Peter Dutton's call to boycott Woolworths because of their decision to no longer sell Australia Day merchandise? Yes or no? But the idea that there's this third question that comes in that everyone would of course agree, which is that our focus when it comes to cost of living is prices at the moment. Instead is a weird off-ramp from actually dealing with the issue that is before us, the thing that is annoying so many people around Australia. But again, perfect example about how the media works. I've been around long enough to know how the sausage is made, and it ain't pretty when they do things like this. There's a straight-up yes-no question to be asked. Do you support what Woolworths did and the way that they said it? Yes or no? But once you start throwing in an option that means you don't have to have a decision on that, instead you can say, my greater concern is this completely other issue that's over here, well then it's not really a poll that was designed to do anything other than to find, in this case, about 20% of people who have the hardcore position, which is to only answer in those 3 options that you support where Peter Dutton is. Now, these are the subtle little games that the media plays because they will all now, of course, turn around and say, what an absolute garbage issue. Only 1 in 5 people care about this issue. What a minor culture wars issue. But the reality is, let's just see the straight up and down yes and no. If it ends up that 80% of people have no problem and 20% of people have the problem, well then, OK, that'll be the data. And this show is driven by data. It's not just about feel opinions. I try to show you the data, like I just did about the jobs, where we weren't talking about the headlines, but we were talking about the detail. We try to show you the sources, like the Australian Bureau of Statistics. And there's no polling company in the country that is sort of government-run that puts out public polling. So there's always a degree of methodology or other questions about how they come up with their polls. But I'll show you the damn data, even if it's a poll that will tell you the opposite of how you and I feel about an issue. But it's a little bit hard to actually work out where the Australian public is on all of this if there are 3 options to a yes-no question. Meantime, you will have learnt by now that Woolworths has decided that they are going to start showing the Indigenous flag. And of course, it won't just be one, it'll have to have 2. And whether this will fly out the front of every Woolworths in the country or just be a sticker on the door, who knows? But funnily enough, when Sky News was asking about this today, there is no such indication about whether there is a plan to show an Australian flag at all.